Steve, how are you?
I'm wonderful.
Good, great. Um, I'm going to apologize now because I'm going to say that this is a longer episode, but I'm going to make it up to you by providing you with some pretty good content. I think we are providing.
There you go.
Uh,
Longer but better.
yeah,
Longer
so
and better, not but. There's no contrast there.
correct. There's just a lot to discuss, and we happen to have a very good guest on the podcast this week as well. So excited about that. But first, the name of this podcast is called The Stuff Summer Says Podcast with
Steve.
Steve. Our guest this week is former Penn State football player Tyoka Jackson, who joins us to chat about his kind of rising career, I think is the best way to put it, in the broadcast booth. Great conversation, a lot of energy, a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that conversation. So go ahead and take a listen to that, and then we'll get to all the other stuff that's going to make this episode a little longer. We'll see. I don't know, but maybe after this. Bye. Steve, I think our recent run of former Penn State football players has continued, and I'm very excited about to talk to this one because he's also in the sports media game, so we get to kind of balance both of our worlds. Mr. Tyoka Jackson joins us today. How are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Great. I'm great.
I am upgrading your. Am I upgrading your former run or run of former NFL, not NFL players, Penn State players? Am I upgrading the run, or I'm falling right in line?
We've been lucky. You're right on line. We got you're on the all '90s team, right? Leading sack guy when you retired. We had the all-time receiving leader. We had some. We've had a pretty steady group, honestly.
All right, yeah, all right, cool. I'm in good company.
Yeah, and I think you're the first true color analyst that we've had on, so I think that's where we will start.
Wait a minute, I'm black, bro. I'm black.
Nice.
I meant color.
And he's
analyst.
playing the game already. There we go. All right.
No, I had to do it. You teed it up, man. I mean, I don't play baseball, but when you're going to groove one down the middle, I got to swing at it. But no, so you've had play-by-play guys before.
A couple of play-by-play guys, but I don't know former Penn State football players turn color analysts. I don't know we've had yet. So excited to chat there. Let's start there. You go play football professionally, obviously, and then I guess, does the game ever leave you? Is that why you go chase a career in television?
It does not. You know, if you're a fan, I started off as a fan of the game of football. So, you know, a lot of guys, I was really surprised to find out when I got to college and even in the National Football League aren't really fans of the game. They do it because they're really good at it and they enjoy what they get from it. And that's fine with me as long as they, you know, show up and playing on Saturday or Sunday. I couldn't care less what you played for. I remember my former coach, Joe Paterno, talked about, you know, guys playing for the right reasons. But yeah, I mean, for me, I played the game because I loved it and I enjoyed it and I was a fan of it. So as a kid, when I was playing the few little league seasons I did play, I was loving it. But when I wasn't playing, I was watching it. And same through high school and same through college. When I wasn't playing in games on Saturday at Beaver Stadium or wherever, I'm watching ESPN and watching the great games being played on ABC. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just an extension of that. So once you retire, and I was fortunate enough to play as long as I did over my life, 25 years is a lot of football. I was done playing. I retired with 1 year left on my contract with the Detroit Lions. I had my fill of playing, but I'll never get my fill of football because it is just a part of who I am. And I love the game so much and respect what the game does for us as we get an Amber Alert on our phones. My goodness. That's not great for podcasting.
No, you're good. You're good.
We've had smoke alarms before, so it's all good. We've done that too.
Yeah, but and obviously it's horrible to get an alert like that. So hopefully that turns out safely. But anyway, so yeah, I just you know, it's just another way of being able to be close to the game, be a part of the game in a small way, because the love never dies.
How did you go about getting your foot in the door, so to speak? Obviously, your foot is securely in the door with a resume like yours when it comes to from playing football. But when it's like, hey, I want to give this a shot. How did you go about kind of being like, Hi, I'm Tyoka Jackson, and I'd like to provide services this way.
Yeah, so I mean, the NFL Shield is very powerful, and so that's the foot in the door. That's the beginning of it. When you can have that on a resume, like you just mentioned, that certainly helps, but that is not enough. But I think the NFL does a great job with a lot of programs for players who are transitioning from current player to retired player or legend, like they'd like to call us. I'm no legend, but that's what they call us, so I'll take it. But they have a lot of programs that cover a lot of different subjects, whether that's being a small business owner or personal finance or the music industry. But their most popular program is what used to be called the Broadcast Boot Camp. They call it something else now. I don't remember what it is now, but it was called the Broadcast Boot Camp when I was playing and ending my career. Excuse me, and that's the place where you go if you can get in, and it is a process of applying, and like I said, it's the most popular, so they turn down more people for that program than any other program they offer. If you can get in, that's the place where you go, and you're literally getting on the job training while also auditioning at the same time, and it's nothing but decision makers in the room. And so that's kind of where I was able to be seen and show my love for the game and my knowledge, and that's kind of what got me going. I had a radio show during my career, and I always had an affinity for talking about things I love, whether that's football or other stuff. And people would be complimentary about my ability to speak, and so I always thought in the back of my head, even though I didn't major in communications, I always thought about, maybe I'd like to get at a shot. And so once I retired and my businesses were established, I began to think about my next challenge and my next dream. And, being able to play at Penn State and play in the National Football League was a dream, and I was able to accomplish that. So that gives you a little confidence that maybe you can accomplish another dream. And so here I am trying to do that as well. And I was able to get hired out of the boot camp by the Big Ten Network, which I'm very grateful for that start. And I have not looked back since.
What's the competition like in broadcasting compared to the competition when you're on the field?
That's a great question. In fact, from that boot camp, a story was told from one of the decision makers. Can't remember his name and what network it was, but I'll never forget what he said. And I tell this every time this subject comes up. Just think about right now in the NFL. Every week there are 32 teams playing 16 games max. So that means there are 16 play-by-play analysts and 16 color analysts. And so there are 32 teams, at least 3 quarterbacks on each team, right? So we're talking at least 96 NFL quarterbacks. So statistically, it's harder to be an NFL broadcaster than it is to be a quarterback. I mean, and we know how hard it is to be an NFL quarterback. But again, there's 96 of them on the planet, at least right now. And there are no more than 16 folks working in that booth as an analyst. And then once you start having bye weeks, you're going to be down to 12-ish, right? And so it's highly competitive, super competitive. And every ism that exists in the world exists in this industry. And so you got to be willing to really persevere. And, that's what the game taught me anyway. I was an undrafted free agent. I had no business playing in the league. The league said that I wasn't good enough. With that resume that you talked about before, I clearly wasn't good enough for the NFL, but I was in love with the NFL. And I was going to force it to love me. And so I'm doing the exact same thing with broadcasting. I am not where I want to be with broadcasting. I would love to be doing games on a high level, but I am appreciative and for the opportunity that I have now, and I'm taking full advantage of it. And I'm going to force this industry to love me just like I did with the NFL.
So part of getting better and growing your career is analyzing the job that you're doing. How do you do that? How judgmental are you? How do you watch and analyze the way I called this game versus that game, and what I can take forward, and so on and so on?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I think in life it's important to have real conversations with yourself and to really be honest about where you are and where you want to go and what is it going to take to get there. And so, as I just said, I'm not where I want to be. So I got to look at myself, because looking at anything external is a waste of time, because I can't control anything else. I can't control whether so-and-so gives me a shot, or I can't control whether someone writes a nice note about me. But what I can control is how consistently excellent I'm going to be. And I talked about all the isms that are out there in this industry and out there in the world, whether that's racism, sexism, and every other ism that I can't remember right now that exists. I can't control that, but I can control being consistently excellent. And I believe consistent excellence is undeniable. And so I proved that with my career. I was cut twice, being an undrafted player. The average career of a player in NFL is 3.4 years. The average career of an undrafted player is 1.2. I played 12, not because I suddenly became bigger, stronger, faster, and grew taller. I just believed in hard work and consistent excellence, putting consistent excellence on tape. And I'm doing the exact same thing right now. So as you can see, it is a theme, a recurring theme about these life lessons that I learned in the game that I'm applying to the rest of my life, including broadcasting. So really being critical of where I am and what I'm doing, looking at what I'm doing on a regular basis, reassessing it, being honest with myself, and taking responsibilities for all of the screw ups and taking responsibilities for all the greatness. I enthusiastically embrace both, because they're part of what's real about me. And so that's what I'm going to continue to do, is work so far. And I'm just going to keep grinding, man.
You mentioned the other people in the room a couple times, whether it was the boot camp or decision makers. It seems like on the football field, you're going to know when you've done something good or bad. But what you're doing now in this part of your career is more subjective. So how do you know what you're shooting for? It seems like it could be a moving target, or it seems like again, you can't control what people are thinking. But so how do you know what you're trying to provide them?
Hey, look, Darian, you need to step up your game, because that's like 3 straight great questions from Steve, man. I mean, I'm gonna need you to. I mean, don't let Steve carry this, bro. That's a great question.
He usually does.
No, I'm just kidding. No, that is a great question, and that is one of the tough parts about this business. Folks don't like to necessarily be very critical because you never know whose feelings you're hurting, and you never know who you're going to need next week or next year. So I understand how that works, but I am always hungry for feedback. That's one of the many great things about the game that is a subtle great thing that people don't talk about, but you miss it when it's gone. And that is direct, honest feedback and communication about where you stand. And as a young player or young person playing football, you don't understand how valuable that really is, because a lot of times you don't want to hear it, because sometimes that open and honest and straightforward communication burns your ears. But all it's doing is giving you an opportunity to get better. And so I long for that, and it's hard to get it. But what you do over time is you develop relationships with folks that, you help them realize you can trust me with your honesty. And this is, and as I tell folks who've worked for me, I attack problems. I don't attack people. And so I try to find people who I trust and who I respect to be that way with me. You're not attacking me. You're attacking a performance or a problem for me. And you're giving me an opportunity to get better. And so I look for that, and I found that over the years, and I will continue to cultivate those relationships to be able to get positive or negative feedback. And really, and let me scratch that. It's not really positive or negative feedback. It's honest feedback. Right. Honestly, I want honest feedback in whatever form that is. And because I can use it. And again, it's like, being a restaurant owner, which I am, it's like when a customer leaves comments, whatever that comment is, it's valued. And then when there are comments that call for corrections, you're doing me a favor. You could have kept that to yourself and just never spent any money here again. But giving me that feedback, it gives me an opportunity to correct a problem that I can then use to earn your business again. Or if I can't earn your business again, and maybe you're gone because of that experience, it won't happen to someone else because you gave me that feedback. It's the same thing. So, I would tell any young people, do not shy away from feedback that you don't necessarily love hearing. That's giving you the opportunity to get better. And so I long for it, and I welcome it, and I seek it, and I've been able to, again, find some folks who are willing to give it to me, and that's how I add that to my mix of, soup. That means that soup that I love to taste, called getting better every single day.
Cool. Thanks.
You played football at the highest level, obviously, for, as you mentioned, 12 years. But the challenge I feel with a lot of broadcasters is they're almost too smart. So how do you go about translating the football knowledge into more of the Joe Schmo audience, if you will?
Well, I think the important part is just to remember what it is that you are there for. I'm not there to talk high level X's and O's with my former teammates and how we're going to shut this running game down by making sure that we don't cross face when the ball goes away. That's a different conversation. Hey, look, you got to stay backside because they keep cutting it back. So when they go with the AO block, go ahead and squeeze and make sure you're staying backside because that ball is cutting backside. That's a different conversation for a different purpose. My job is in a booth is to tell why what you just saw happen and do it in a way that I'm understanding. I'm talking to one of my friends who his favorite sport might actually be basketball, but he likes to watch the Georgia Bulldogs play. And so he's tuning into this game, and I want him to understand what just happened and why it happened. And so understanding my role as an analyst, my job is not to describe what's happening. That's my play-by-play partner's job. And I let him do that or her do that, and I don't try to step on her toes. And then when she's done, I'm going to come in and just tell you why, or give you some really good feedback as to what might be coming next. Because what just happened was so mundane. It was a 1-yard dive into the A gap, and it was nothing happened, right? Or if it was a quarterback sneak, to get the first down with inches to go, I don't need to explain to you why he was able to fall forward for those inches. I might be able to help you see, though, that now that they are in the red zone, this defense likes to bring a lot of pressure. And so you got to be really careful to holding the football because they bring pressure. So you need to get this ball. It's got to come out quick when you throw this football in this situation. So that's the sort of thing I'm there to give you, just a little bit of analysis or a little bit of an enhancer to what you're doing as to why it's happening and maybe something you can look for that's coming.
Do you watch tape differently now as an analyst as opposed to a player?
Oh, 100%. Yes, absolutely. 100%. As a player, I focused on my position and the position that I was going to be combative with. And, as a defensive lineman, I'm focusing on the quarterback and I'm focusing on the box, the spaces between the two tackles. I'm not really paying a whole lot of attention to what's happening on the outside because that's not really my job. Certainly, if there's something to see there that could be helpful, I'll find it or hear about it. And that's the coach's, job to give me a heads up about something that may not be within this box. But in general, when I watch tape as a player, I'm only watching the end zone copy because that's showing the box and what's happening with the backs, the quarterback, the running back, the offensive line and the tight ends. And then obviously if a wide receiver is motioning into the box, it'll show me what he's doing in there as well. But as an analyst, I'm watching wide copies. I'm watching everything because I need to really have a full understanding of how this offense likes to attack a defense and what makes them successful, what stresses opponents about what they do. Today's game is a lot about pace and space and, being able to spread people out and go with pace. So it makes it hard for them to substitute. And then that space also creates opportunities offensively. And so I need to be able to talk about what those are. And I can't do that if I'm just watching end zone copies. So definitely watching wide ankle copies and then also watching both sides of the ball. I obviously didn't watch my offense play, when I was playing. I didn't really care. As long as they put points on the board, that's all that mattered to me. So I'm only watching as a player the opposing offense. Now, as an analyst, I'm watching offense and defense of both sides of the ball. So, it's like basically watching 4 different teams because I'm paying attention to, let's say Ohio State's defense against Penn State's offense, but then I'm also paying attention to Penn State's defense and Ohio State's offense. So I've got to know all of that. And honestly, it might sound a little crazy. I've actually learned more about the game as an analyst than I knew as a player just because of everything I just said.
Makes sense.
In terms of non-football stuff, I mean, you've been very successful. You mentioned the restaurants and the franchisee stuff. What are there intangibles that translate from football to business? I mean, so often we talk about those things, but you've been successful in both areas. Do those things about consistent excellence and attacking problems, not people, do they translate pretty equally? Or what has been the part of your soup success for the business side of it?
Yeah, no, I think most of it does. Some of it obviously does not. I mean, a lot of times in football, you can solve problems with violence on the field. In fact, you're a better player generally if you choose violence, right? Obviously, that doesn't work off the field, right? So that's just an example of one thing that doesn't translate. There is some honest communication that doesn't work in the real world, in the business world. So you have to pick and choose about, how honest and full and straightforward you are about certain communication. And obviously the language choice has to be a lot different inside the game and outside the game. And then also understanding how to deal with women in the workplace and how, we didn't have women in the workplace when I played. And that's one of the things I love about the game that's changed. You're seeing women being involved on the sidelines, in meetings. I think that is very, very valuable because it helps to sort of normalize young men in interacting in a business setting with women. I think that's very important. There are a lot of intelligent and talented women in the business world. And if all you've ever done was accomplish things, the important things with men or boys, you might struggle with how to properly interact with women in a way that is going to be successful for both her and you. And so I think that was something I had to adjust to. And I'm loving that the game is changing. The culture of the game is changing to include women. Because at the end of the day, we're all on this earth together, men, women, we got to be able to interact with each other. So that inclusivity to me has been great, but that was an adjustment for me. Having my number one partner in this business is a woman. And I the CEO, when I came in to IHOP, the CEO was a woman, and great. And I'd never been around a CEO, which was the head coach for me. That was a female. So, that was one of the things that was an adjustment for me that did not come straight from the game. But for the most part, everything else in terms of the details of learning what it is you're doing, football, learn that from football. The importance of good old fashioned hard work and putting in hours. Everyone's trying to be efficient, and that's great. Everyone's looking to find ways to do things smarter and not harder, great. But sometimes good old-fashioned hard work beats the other guy, and so not being afraid to actually outwork people. That was a great lesson from football that translates. And then being accountable, even as a leader, you've got to be accountable. I learned that as being a captain in the NFL, the best captains, the best leaders are unselfish and accountable. And so it's great to have the ability to speak and lead with your voice. But if you're not accountable to the folks you're trying to lead by the way you're acting every single day, then you're going to have a problem leading. And so, for me, it was going in the back and being a busboy and learning to run the dish machine as an owner of my restaurant, getting back there and getting my hands dirty. That did allow me to do two things. It allowed me to learn that aspect of business, but I think it also brought me closer to our employees and helped them see that I'm just a regular person, just like you, trying to make this happen. And I need you to make it happen, and you need me to have this here so that we all can be successful together. And that's what teamwork is all about.
Makes sense.
Thanks.
All right, Tyoka. Every Penn Stater that comes on this podcast, we ask 3 questions before we get them out of here. They're Pretty quick answers is usually what we're looking for, but a little explanation is fine. First one, go-to creamery ice cream flavor.
Oh, so here I gotta make that's a tough question for me because here's the honest truth, and I'm gonna get hated on for this. I don't like the ice cream.
Wow.
And I'm the only one in my family. I just took a trip up there, with my niece and my queen and my daughter, and we went to the creamery and they all loved it. I didn't get any.
I think you're the second person.
You're the second. I think. You're the second. I forget who the first was.
Yeah,
I did. I mean, I guarantee you, it's me. It's so clean and so fresh. I'm not used to something that all natural and fresh and clean. I guarantee that's what it is. Now, I will say this though: best lemonade on the planet.
That's true.
And every time I'm on campus, I'm leaving with multiple gallons. So big up to the creamery for that.
All right. You're the czar of Penn State sports for one day and one day only. What's your change? What's your one big change?
Wow. Man, you said quick answers. I can't be quick with that. I got to give that some thought. The one change. All right. You said sports. You didn't say football. You said sports.
All sports. Yep. Yes, it is. But it can be football, but it doesn't have to. We've had former players say basketball things, for example.
Got you. I think it's really cool, and a couple schools do this, and so it's a little bit of a copycat thing, but I just think it's really cool, man. I love the idea of the last home game, and whether that's basketball, women's or men's basketball, or even volleyball or football, whatever, the kickoff, or even the opening tip in basketball. Everybody on the field is a walk-on. Mm-hmm. The opening kickoff or the opening kickoff return. Everybody on the field is a walk-on because, I was a walk-on in the NFL. When you're not drafted, you're a walk-on. You're trying to make it. And I respected them when I was there because they got us ready. But I respect the work that walk-ons put in every single day with very little thank yous and without the acknowledgement of being on scholarship. So I think walk-ons should be a part of the opening play for every sport. Obviously, wrestling is a little bit different, but every team sport that you can put a group out there to start, it should be filled with walk-on.
I like that one. That's a new one. I like that one. All right, last one. You're back in town for one night and one night only. What bar are you walking into?
Well, see, look, again, it's tough because you're talking to a guy who doesn't drink. I've never even had a beer in my entire life.
Really? Right? Okay. So,
you're just gonna. So let's flip that. So
where are you going to dinner?
Yeah, where are you going?
That's what I'm saying. There you go. Where am I going to eat? And I'm going. Wow, that's a tough one too, man. This may sound weird, but there's something nostalgic about that McDonald's.
College Avenue.
I love it.
On College Avenue. And I want to be clear, no disrespect. I hate McDonald's. But for one night, I'm with my boys. We're going to that McDonald's because I used to be the hangout, man. And I'm going to get me a double quarter pounder with cheese because I learned getting that from, who did I learn it from? Kajana. He's the first person I ever saw get a double quarter pounder with cheese. He ate two of them. I only ate one. So I'm getting a double quarter pounder with cheese and I'm getting a filet of fish and I'm sitting in the booth in McDonald's on College Avenue one more time, man.
That is the best answer we've had for that question.
That's great.
Thank you. You took me back with that one.
That's beautiful. All right, Tyoka, where can people find your stuff? Where can they find your broadcast? Where do they come to eat when they're down there? Whatever you need.
Yeah. So I mean, look, I have an IHOP in Washington D.C., man. So come to the Uptown 14th Street IHOP, which is probably about maybe 12 blocks from the White House. We're uptown, man, in DC, and we've been doing that now for going on 16 years. So that's great. Tie Nose Football on all of your social media. I'm there. I need to get my numbers up. Man, somebody hacked my account when I was verified. I haven't got my blue check back. I'm salty about that. And obviously Elon Musk took our blue checks, and I'm not paying for that one. So I had blue check on Twitter. Then it became X, and they took it. I'm not paying for that. But yeah, so Tie Nose Football. And then this weekend on ESPN Plus, man, I've got, Bowling Green hosting ODU, and that'll be Bowling Green is a really good football team, and they're 1-2, but they played some really good close games, and I think we know of one of them. And Bowling Green's a good football team, man, and so I'm looking forward to that. Old Dominion's coming in, had them last year. They're part of the Sun Belt, and Bowling Green is the MAC, and so there's a good, cross section of conference play right there. So I'm looking forward to going up to Ohio and having a good time in that booth.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Steve. I think the main thing that I took away there is he's got the personality for it. Like he has the acting chops, if you will, of being a dynamic broadcaster that I think he's got a good career ahead of him in the broadcast booth. Obviously, he's had certainly a good NFL and a little bit beyond career as well. I think that was the main takeaway is I think show your personality, and I think people appreciate that. I certainly appreciated it in that interview, but I think fans in general, broadcast-wise, and I think we'll maybe get to this in a little bit when we talk about this weekend's broadcast, I think they enjoy that, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think his talk about pursuing excellence, consistent excellence, and seeking honest feedback, like finding that, because I think broadcasters probably don't do that. Producers and directors probably soft sell their criticisms to people, and then somebody just doesn't get an assignment, right? Like, they don't get the assignment they thought they had, and people aren't honest with them. So I think his willingness to seek that out will be important as he keeps improving.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think the other thing that's interesting to hear is, and I was thinking about this with Tom Brady this week, because I finally got to experience the Tom Brady broadcast, is like, I think Tom Brady struggles with breaking down the average, or breaking it down, his depth of knowledge for the average football fan. And I think that's reassuring. And I think the language that Tyoka was speaking there at first was a great example of how in-depth people can be and how in-depth they should not be. Because I didn't understand a lick of that, and I've watched how many football games in my life? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I thought that was good. And I thought the McDonald's answer was by far one of the best podcast answers we've ever had.
I think so too. He closed out strong.
Yeah. So thank you to Tyoka for joining, spending some time with us, and yeah, cool. All right, let's talk about the football game that was played this weekend. Of course, Steve was there the last time that Penn State set the 700 plus record yard back in 1926. That was an old guy joke. He didn't like it.
I got it.
Okay.
Wearing my little fedora, fur coat. A pennant, little pennant waving in the sky.
If Poorman's listening, I thought about tweeting at him this weekend, throwing him a couple strays, but it's Poorman and I like him too much. I think my main takeaways are this. Penn State did what they were supposed to do, looked fun doing it, and I think the two things is you can feel the difference in this team's offense versus last year. Like, even regardless of opponent, they just look more connected, they look more smooth, they look more fun. And I really stand by what I said about Tyler Warren. I'm blown away by Tyler Warren. I think he's the first offensive player that I've seen for Penn State since Saquon that is the best, dynamically the best at their position, that's making a noticeable to an average fan impact on the game. Maybe Ulu was probably pretty damn good too, but it's hard to see that with an offensive lineman the same way you see it with Saquon, or you see it with a wide receiver or a tight end. I think Tyler Warren has really become something special, and it's been very fun and fascinating to watch his growth over the last 5-ish years. And so that's kind of how I felt about it. How do you feel about the game, Steve?
You're not going to like my takeaway. My takeaway came early. I thought Kent State has nice helmets.
Oh, I did too.
Oh, see, you did like that's. Honestly, that there was nothing this game that surprised me. I mean, I guess that maybe you could have had more points early, and as a Penn State fan or whatever else. But Kent State's helmets are pretty sweet.
I will say, my new Friday tradition, which is probably just turning into a superstition, is playing the game on the EA Sports College Football video game. And they gave me like a a blue helmet and it had like a much bigger logo and it was kind of ugly. So when I got into the stadium and saw those, I was like, wow, these are really nice. I love the face mask too, like the white face mask. I mean, that's this helmet back here. There's a white face mask on it for a reason, but I think I agree with you. I thought that they actually had pretty nice, like for having primary yellow color, it was not loud. Like it was not annoying, I think.
Right. No, I mean, otherwise everything happened that you thought was supposed to happen. I feel bad for Kent State, right? Like again, they shouldn't have lost St. Francis probably, but man, the schedule they played early on here to make the money, whatever they're doing, you're getting people beat up and hurt and whatever else. I mean, that was my takeaway is like as good as USC Michigan is for the sport, this kind of stuff is probably not nearly as good, and both of those things are here to stay.
No, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I had a thought there. The one thing I didn't like about Kent State, they had the ball. I think the deepest they got the ball was to like the 44, 45, and then like the 41. And they didn't go for it on fourth down. And I kind of hate, like, I think we saw this happen, like the reverse of this happen against Bowling Green, if you will. But I hate the kind of like loser mentality that we see when these games happen and are played. Like, go for it. Who cares? Like you're probably going to get scored on anyways.
Yeah, but I got to protect your team a little bit, right? So you're not giving them a short field. I mean, I get it. I can see it from both sides, but maybe the coach, like, maybe he knows. In those situations, I guess I tend to trust the coach a little more of like, okay, I'm going to protect my kids and prevent them from getting this run down their throat on a short field and making this even worse than it's going to be.
Fair.
But I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's do this normal Darian and Steve style. Game presentation or TV first? Oh, what? I lost you.
I want to hear about the game because I did get a little bit intel from one of our loyal listeners, so I want to compare what you had to say about game presentation.
Here's what I got. Super ribbon boards are here. They are here earlier than expected. They're cool. It's great. Like they're fine. There's a lot of ads on them. Didn't really add much, but I could give them that it's game one and like there's probably more that they could do. I think they could be, if used well, they're gonna be fun and cool and add a neat little like thing that not a lot of other stadiums have. Like not a lot of other Big Tens schools have a super ribbon board. It's very large, by the way. It's like it looks bigger when it's on than when it's off. So that was my main takeaway there. Notice this both on TV and watching in person. You cannot see those ad boards on the field. The ones all like along the sideline, you cannot see it. There's too many people standing there. I did notice, however, that they had the cheerleaders standing right next to the tunnel, the away tunnel, as opposed to that corner. Like the other corner kind of over where their band was. I thought that was interesting. So maybe we'll see a transition there. The font on the out of town scoreboard got a lot bigger. And I am greatly appreciative of that. Thank you to whoever fixed that. Listen, I'm not saying that I did that, but I'm saying that I did.
Sure
that.
You did. Come on. Nobody else complained about it.
Yeah. No one. Definitely not 17 people I heard throughout the concourse, old guys grumbling about it too in game one. The other thing that was spotted by a super fan of the podcast that I had not seen and then saw briefly and only saw a couple times afterwards, but I don't think I've ever seen before inside Beaver Stadium. An ad for a beer. There were advertisements for Bud Light, and I don't think I've ever seen that on a ribbon board ever. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just, but that was new. And I thought that was interesting.
No, about as vicey as it got through the years before that was when they had the student section named for like the casino thing about 8 years ago. They had like some Philadelphia casino that was like along the backside of the student section. So yeah, well, I think it's gonna come to what people are willing to put up with, right, and what they think they can get money for. And I mean, like, they're selling the beer in the stadium.
I was just gonna say, I don't really have an issue with the beer.
But I think the stadium billboards ground level, God, it'd be great if somebody said, hey, not enough people see those, let's get some of those people off the field. Because I think Penn State Beaver Stadium might have the most crowded sideline. Now, it's small, compared, maybe not as tight as Iowa. It's tight, but there's a lot of people who are hangers on down there and have no reason to be there. And I think people would love them to be out of there. Although maybe some of them are donors. Like I know people who they go on for like a piece of a quarter, like they shuttle them on and stay there. So it would be depending on which hand's making the most money for you.
As somebody that is not a donor of that level, but has gotten to experience that, they normally send you on the away sideline right near the tunnel. However, what would be the southeastern corner, that's where all the alumni players stand usually. Right. And that was pretty packed. I was very surprised. I didn't realize that there was one there until I saw it like kind of glimmer through. So I don't know. I'm mildly interested in why those. I mean, like can they charge that much more? That's what I don't know.
Right. Maybe it's part of a package and they just get them. But at some point, somebody who's paying for that's going to say, well, that's nice, but nobody's seeing that. So why are you charging me for it?
Right, well, it does match the other ribbon boards. Like if the Super Ribbon board is showing a Wise ad, usually those ones were showing the Wise ad or Planet Fitness or whatever. The one little thing that I did notice game day production wise that I loved. So last week, game 1, they had like this Utz ad, and it was like the Utz crunch play of the game, and it was like a pretty lame play. They saved it for a little bit later, and then they put like a potato chip crunching sound over it, and I just thought that was a good touch. Like I thought that was a clever little touch, and people laughed at it like it was a good moment. So that was another good thing. So
are you ready?
It was still there. They changed that order a little bit. Didn't love it. Still didn't love it. They were like, this is gonna be my new hill. They were like, let's join the band in singing "Hey Baby," and I was like, that's weird. Like we've never done that. Like they just play the song and people sing along. It's how every song has worked. So I thought that was weird. They
new
did
people in charge.
They did.
Like, well, we gotta tell people.
That's true.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's true. I gotta tell people. They did smooth out the intro. It like the pump up video, Zombie Nation team running on the field. They made that a little more connected. I appreciate that as well.
So. I do too.
That's everything I wrote down. I
had feedback on the ribbon boards. Feedback on the ribbon boards was they're there, they work, they're all ads, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, like I mean, yes, that's their job. Now maybe this weekend for however white they want to try to make the place or whatever the whiteout happens officially, I can see them doing more specifically brand oriented. That's white.
They did
with words or whatever.
They did do like some cool animations with those ribbon boards, like when touchdowns were scored. Like it wasn't ads 100% of the time, but it's 90-80% of the time it is. Okay. It's not. I would like to see like more like make some noise graphics and things like that there, and like the what's the decibel level, like that would be a cool thing to like pump in, even if it's fake, of showing like what the volume is like and things like that. And I think
they'll come. I think as we've talked about this through the years, they'll come. So, and I guess we talked about this last week, but I'm glad to make this my hill too. Is your why should the expectation or the be that it's not ready for games? Like, what if it's not? What? I guess I'm unfamiliar with functionality of events or presentation of events that change from week to week, right? Like, it's like they don't know how to play with all the toys when they first get them. And I get that because they just first got them. And maybe it was Kent State, so it doesn't need to be as good. But is that really an excuse for the 109,000 people or however many were actually in there that paid to come in, that it's not spot on when they're doing it for that game?
Two things. Number one, first thing, I agree with you, but we care way too much. Like you and I care way too much. Like we are not the average fan when it comes to that. Number two, I do agree with you. I will say I felt like the game day production only got better. Like there have been years where it's taken a step back in game 2.
That's true. That's fair.
And it got better this week, or this most recent week. I feel like this is a lame cop-out excuse, and maybe but I think I do this with the podcast and with the blog. It's like it's like, oh, I didn't think about that. And obviously like it's being you, but like it's just like I didn't. Prime example of that is on our blog we had the roster, right, and we just had the roster 1 through 99. And then I was like, wait a second, can we make this searchable? Like, and that didn't come. It didn't hit me until later on, I guess is what I'm saying.
And I'm yes, but that except
Okay,
the team you're looking at and listening to the full production team right now. And if you look at Darian's side, you're looking at 99.9% of the production team, right? So
4%.
we have Penn State has full staff whose job that is. That's all. And if they don't, it's hard to believe they're understaffed. That's all.
Okay, that's a good point. No, you're right. You're right.
It's the 4th largest stadium in the world. And again, they have more people than they did staff now than they did 5 or 10 years ago. So they are ramping up to probably a level, and it's hard to have a full-time staff if you're only doing 7 games a year. What else are they going to do? Right? Like those people, the people whose primary job it is animations on the ribbon board, you're only getting 7 shots at that. It's not like it's the MGM true. Grand Casino, indoor arena, whatever, and you're doing it 360 nights a year.
Okay. So that's fair. You made a good point. Look at us disagreeing on our podcast. I'm proud of us.
The consultants will love that.
How was the TV production? Because I watched it.
I could see the pretty helmets. I didn't really. I sort of paid attention. That was it. Like it was Penn State, Kent State, bad game at noon. There was stuff there. It was wanting in a couple ways.
You didn't like the announcers? Because I saw rave reviews about Jake Butt, and I thought he was pretty good.
I think he's good. I think he's good. The game skews every. I mean, again, it's for me like the big guys get all the attention for big games because the games are good. Maybe they were smeared in my mind by the game, and I didn't pay attention hard because it was background noise.
Okay, all right. I thought the broadcast was fine. I thought it was pretty good. I don't know.
You see, you're sucking up the Jake Butt potential former future guest. That's all.
Do we want to let a Michigan man on this podcast?
No, never mind. I don't know why I said that.
We would like to let a Michigan he's fine. He's fine. Yeah, Saturday was good. Only rained for about 5 minutes, and that was about it. And kind of hot. Yeah. I don't know if it was pretty hot tailgate. It was a little warmer.
Did look very nice. Yep.
A little warmer than I expected. Okay. We talked about TV, game presentation. We're going to talk about the UCLA kick time. That's what we're going to talk about next. Oh, boy.
We're going to talk about that there's somebody finally in the conference that Penn State fans can point to as disliked by the Big Ten more than Penn State.
Okay, you UCLA. Said it, not me, and I appreciate it because that was kind of about where I was at with it. I think it's very disrespectful.
I thought Mulvihill from that podcast we watched earlier this year strongly, if not all verbatim, said, boy, I don't see Big Ten, the teams in the West Coast coming east and playing noon this year.
That's kind of what I took out of it too.
Exactly. So that's why it surprised me. Like I do think in the pecking order of the new West Coast Big Ten teams, it's USC, Oregon, UCLA, then maybe Washington, or maybe those two reverse. But I think USC and Oregon will get more respect from the Big Ten writ large than UCLA does. And UCLA is just not very good this year. So they're good enough, but at the same time, they're good enough to be selected for the big noon game. This is the game.
That's why I'm struggling with it. I think, right? Like we assume that's the first pick off the board for that week. That's why that game was chosen. I have a lot of I think I might write about it. We'll see what the night brings, but I might write about it. But I have issues with it from the Penn State perspective. I think more of my issues honestly would be if I'm a UCLA fan, I'm ticked off about that. If I'm a UCLA player, I'm ticked off about it. Their administration should be pissed off about it too. Because it's just kind of a slap in the face. Hey, welcome to the conference. You have to play the first game where a team has to travel a first 12-day window kick time where the team has to travel across the country to play in the East Coast time. And by the way, it's going to be at noon, which is 9 o'clock your body's time. So your guys are probably going to have to get up at what's going to feel like 3 a.m. their body's time to be ready for said game. I think if we're going to sit here and preach and be whatever about student athlete health and then pull that kind of stuff, I'm not for it. I'm not for it. I think this is put this in the collective bargaining that's coming type deal.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're UCLA, you have to be upset about. Again, I was surprised because I really thought when Mulvihill did this stuff with Joel Klatt, and we referenced it a lot, that gosh, I'd be willing to bet a lot that was at least he intimated this. West Coast teams aren't going to do that. Now, I don't know. Looking at the fifth,
but so here, when I took a guess at it, I had the Ohio State Iowa game at noon. That made a lot more natural sense in that slot, and then 3:30 Penn State, and then Michigan Washington 7:30.
Okay, but did we know this weekend? Do we know if this weekend was a Fox? That weekend was a Fox weekend. Because if that weekend wasn't a Fox weekend, your CBS, you're taking Ohio State, which gets a better number than Penn State on TV against Iowa. So you're taking the first pick of that game to reverse engineer it.
Why I felt like they didn't take it was because they've had Ohio State now twice. They've had Ohio State for two crappy games, including the Marshall game that was played already. So I think it was like, that's why Fox was like, this is one of the first marquee games that we can grab. We're going to take it. So that's why I thought that they maybe.
I mean, it could have played out that way. I mean, honestly, CBS could have had a first choice and done that. And NBC, well, I mean, Michigan at Washington.
It's not that it
could have been. I think could have been the first pick of the weekend.
I think January it was very interesting. Now it is not very interesting.
Right.
It's just not.
Yeah, I think NBC's honestly. You thought the conference was going to expand and make this a better schedule for them this year. So far, it's been okay. Like they haven't. I mean, haven't just gotten any games like, oh wow, you can tell there's more teams in the conference and they've got more to choose from. So
I think all their stuff's coming. I think it's coming. I think it's. I mean, and I think they'll get lucky with this weekend. Too.
No, I was only minimally disappointed for UCLA because I was more happy for me.
I know you were. You love your noon kicks. But it just kind of.
Wait, this impacts you isn't this you in the show?
This is me in the concert. Yeah, I'm not going to a concert now too.
You're young. You could do both.
I do. I am young and I can do both. That is all I will say about the people that live in this household. Okay.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay. All right.
I'm so sorry.
All right. Speaking of that NBC game that's on Saturday, you want to talk about that? That includes Penn State's game with Illinois. I'm going to eat crow a little bit and say that I'm looking like a little bit of an idiot because I was like, this game will never be the whiteout. It shouldn't be the whiteout. Illinois is terrible. And Illinois is ranked in the top 20. And now people are saying we should have whiteout energy because they can't say wear white or it's just Penn State whiteout TM because that's already trademarked and only applied to one use. But I have to say, I kind of like this, and I think this might be what I'll write about. I kind of like this, little rogue, organic. I'm calling it the organic whiteout. That's what I'm calling it. We're gonna slap an organic sticker on it and charge you $20 more. $20 more.
You're gonna charge me more for it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Here's what I like about it, and I kind of hate this, but I kind of like it. I think this is how we should do the whiteout every year. I think we should just see what happens. Be like, okay, we think this game, instead of scheduling it, I think let's you get one bullet when you're gonna pull the trigger type thing, and I think this is a lot more fun as a fan.
I don't disagree. I think it's either the way I talked about it, schedule it, it's your event and do it, or it's really not that hard. People are gonna pull some white shit out of their closet. If it doesn't take them 6 days to pull something out of the closet, go ahead and make it the game,
There's some people that are arguing that what about our friends Bill and Linda? Will Bill and Linda 72 and 74 of York, PA find out? I think they will. I think between Facebook groups, between word of mouth, between luck.
If they don't find out by now, they're going to find out Wednesday night at midweek church, right? And then they'll find out later. Yes, people will know.
Okay, so I think I'm okay with that. I think this is how we should do the whiteout moving forward. I think I'm sure that athletics would never do this because it doesn't drive ticket sales to games that they don't necessarily think they're going to get. I don't know.
But the whiteout doesn't drive ticket sales. I mean, I guess it does. I mean,
does.
If you pick a big game, it's going to sell those tickets anyway, right? Aren't you?
Well, that's true.
You'd have to make the whiteout Kent State for it to prove that it sold tickets. Otherwise, you're selling tickets to Ohio State.
There were 109,000 people.
That's what I saw. Well, because Penn State's the show, right? I mean, at this point, maybe people are in and they're worth seeing, and that's what they are.
Okay. I mean, it was overinflated by one because I scanned 3 tickets as opposed to when there were only two of us that went in. But I think I like this. I think Penn State's having fun with this and realizes that this is probably a big game in the schedule that kind of showed up surprisingly, and let's play whack-a-mole with it. And
it's gotten to be a huge game. And from Coach Franklin's news conference earlier today, he talked about, the Illinois will be okay. They've played on the road already and are used to that. And of course, that lit the fire in my mind of, they started the conference season on the road, so they're proven. What would it be like if you started your conference season on the road and won games? Oh, that's happened before, but we've complained about it here. So,
Did you see the game notes? Have you seen the game notes yet?
Oh no, I haven't looked. I saw they came out.
You know how on the first page of the game notes, it's like there's the box that says Steve Jones is calling the radio game, and then right below that, there's about like 5 numbers that they call out. Yeah. The very first number is 2015 for the last time Penn State opened the conference schedule at home. I thought it was great.
Hey, glad Pat Croft fought for that battle and won. Good for him.
Okay, fight the power. Anything else game wise that you're excited about? Want to talk about?
No, I think it'll be a fun one. People are going to be excited. It's going to be a juice day. This is the game that 8 weeks ago everybody was saying what you were saying. Oh my God, please don't make the whiteout the homecoming week. Oh, homecoming is so early in the year. Blah 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 blah. And now people are juiced about this week because the football matters, and I think that'll be a fun vibe on a football Saturday in Happy Valley.
I also think the other thing that helps here is Penn. Like we don't have this like kind of lost the flow of the football season there. You had 2 games, then the bye, and now it's like, okay, let's go. Like I just think it's a good vibe. So I agree with that. I'm excited. Okay. Did we cover everything else before we kind of take this deep dive? I don't think it's be that much of a deep dive, but I want to talk about this. It's been bothering me.
Okay, start diving. I'm ready to hear.
All right, he's ready. So this all comes about because Penn State star safety KJ Winston is injured. To what extent, we don't necessarily know, and I think that's fair, but we'll get to that in a second. But it sounds like, as James Franklin put it, a long-term injury. Now, I am fascinated because there has been an evolution, and one of the things I like to pay attention to when we talk about on this blog, podcast, etc., is the evolution of James Franklin, the coach, and the way he talks about things. And I'm going to apologize a little bit because I'm going to break one of my own rules and take something out of a paywall and put it in a little bit more public of a domain, and that's this article from Greg Pickle, who did a great job on On3 of explaining how James Franklin's language around injuries has changed. He kind of tracked this and talked about this, and then I kind of get to the point. So 2014, we're not going to talk about injuries. It's not fair to the kids, etc. So then Greg goes on to cite Naeem Wortman-White's injury in 2015 as a press release that it was a season-ending injury. That was like one of the first real times we've ever seen James Franklin talk about injuries. Then in 2016, it was later in the bowl game, I believe, towards the end of the season, like in between the end of the season and the bowl game. And James Franklin releases this list of Andrew Nelson, Jan Johnson, Naeem Wortman-White, Brandon Polk, all of these guys that can't play. Kind of taking a deeper dive, kind of anteing up on that. And then in 2022, Franklin kind of got burnt by saying it was a season-ending injury because Zariah Fisher, James Franklin's like, he's done for the season, and then shows up playing in the season effectively. So I guess let me get to the point, and I want to see how you feel about this. And I actually want to ask this from a slightly different perspective. But my point is, I don't know where to stand as a fan on whether or not the head coach of my football team should tell me the injuries for the team, as a fan of the team. However, as a fan of the game and the increase in betting, not that I do that, but the increase in betting, the increase in whatever gamesmanship, the transparency that kind of comes with being informed, that would kind of similar to the NFL model, I would maybe appreciate the more, as college athletics gets to a bigger deal, like I would appreciate the Wednesday, this is this person's status. Thursday, this is this person's status. Friday, here's their game status, if they're going to play or not. I don't know. I've been really wrestling with it, but I do think it's weird that James Franklin's like, we're never going to talk about injuries, and now we're talking about injuries. So I do wonder what's changed there. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I think it's what you just pointed to. I think what's changed is the expectation and the money on the games. I mean, it's not as overt as it is in the NFL, but they do have to have participation things on game days, right?
Right.
So I think this is just the first tiptoe toward that. And I also think there's another factor in this stuff, and maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't. It's the players themselves in terms of brand and awareness and telling stories, right? Like share the information or have some input on it, or what do I want it to be out there? And then the other wild card is, can you share someone's medical information, right? Which sports teams have always kind of probably skirted the rules on in terms of disclosing information or whatever else. But I think just like we talked about a 10-game schedule, I think fans in the sport are closer to, in college football, a probable, whatever the words are, listing of players' participation 2 or 3 days before the game, then game day and all that. It's going to become more official in the next few years, I think. I think it'll just become standardized across the sport.
You kind of unlocked something that was said today that also kind of hit me. Do you think this is... here's what I actually think this is. I'm not going to ask this rhetorically. I think this is also James Franklin just being a head coach for now 10, 12 years plus, and being sick and tired of being asked by the media, hey, is this guy going to play or not? And I think this is maybe his way of figuring out, okay, I'm going to state it this way, and this is how you're going to get it from me, and we'll move on. He kind of put his foot down today when, I think it was maybe Rich, asked a question about injuries. He's like, I don't know. Talk to me on Monday or talk to me on Tuesday. I'll know. I'll have a better.
But he doesn't
idea.
have a Tuesday immediate media availability. Oh, does he? He's the conference one.
Well, he has the practice one, I guess, or I guess is
I thought that was Wednesday afterwards.
Yeah, it is Wednesday. Now that you say that, and I think that's what he was alluding to. So
I took a student to the news conference today.
Yeah,
supposed to be a couple, only one kid showed up. And as we're walking out, I'm like, oh, would you? As we look at this from a PR standpoint, would you? He's like, I don't understand why someone would waste this question on injuries when they know he's not going to answer them. I'm like, I think that's interesting. And I think 99.5% of the time, he's probably not. But the guy's got to ask, sort of, just in case like something has changed. Or he does say, hey, it's because Franklin said that before. Hey, I don't know why you guys are doing this because I'm not going to tell you. But then he slips it in someplace else. Like, who knows if he doesn't pop off Thursday during the radio show, right? And somebody will ask something and he's like, well, there it is. And
he did it. He did it today. He did it with the AJ Harris thing then, because he was like, AJ Harris was battling a stomach flu, and that's not an injury, and it's in the past. And I think the difference between maybe a stomach flu and an injury is like you get over that pretty quickly usually, and you're pretty much fine. It's not like it's gonna linger once it's gone. But I just thought that was interesting. Like, I don't know. I didn't love the way he admonished that, because I think it's a fair question to ask, because I think that's Rich or whoever, I think it was Rich, doing his job, and I think that was a thought that, like, it looked like a pretty serious injury to Cam Wallace, and I think it was a fair question to ask. It's interesting. It felt like he set more of a guideline today of ask me on the Wednesdays, I'll have a better idea.
Maybe, and I think that answer, like, what I don't like about the answer. I mean, you can say this is how I treat it. This is my standard answer. But I never like the I know, I know kind of thing answer. Just don't dance around the answer then. Hey, I haven't had a chance to talk to him. Probably not going to be able to tell you much. Don't do the I know you have to ask, but I'm not going to. Just don't even answer the question. Just give a non-answer, right? Give an honest non-answer. And that just seems like even less confusing.
I think maybe, and I think that was kind of stemming from his mood. He was in not like a good mood, but he wasn't in a bad mood. I wonder if the Antonio Branch thing had anything to do with that. Here's what I want to know. I'm going to ask Steve to put his dad cap on. If your son or daughter was injured playing college athletics, would you want the media to know?
I think I think as a parent, you probably don't want competitive advantage. You don't want people knowing what's wrong with your kid. So, right, there's another factor. right? That's another audience he's working with, is to not give that answer out to keep them happy.
So you would not want that?
Probably not, right?
Okay.
Like, it's, I mean, it's obvious somebody's hurt. I don't need the specifics of what's out there. Yep, they're like hockey, lower body injury, right?
Well,
okay, pick a spot.
Okay, and I think maybe that's where I was just curious on that, but I think that would be beneficial for fans. Is like lower body injury long term, upper body injury short term. And
as much models and benchmarking as this, I'm sure they can find a way, and I'm sure they've talked about it, because at least if they haven't, I'd be shocked. When he talks about, we've done all these things with every level of the program, I'm sure there's somebody he's emulating or trying to find his own way after taking some benchmarking from on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just thought that was a good find by Greg. I just was curious. I don't know. Because it's the one repeating thing that keeps popping up, but it's also changed a lot, as Greg kind of put it out in this article. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that I was curious to hear Steve's take, so I think that was good. All right, old guy, young guy. You said you had it.
Yeah, and you picked the perfect topic to transition into it. 'Cause injuries. Did you ever, when you were a kid, do to play on an old school merry-go-round, big metal one in the middle of a park somewhere? Like you don't see them anymore.
Like the mechanical ones?
No, like the push. You run and you push the merry-go-round.
There's one at the park right up here. I go on it all the time. Anytime I walk the dogs with Anna, I just run over and.
But as a kid, you played a lot and it was all good.
There was one traumatic experience. There was one semi-traumatic experience. We were at St. Patrick's school. It was for a festival or something. I didn't go to school there, but it was out in Horry, Pennsylvania. Sorry, Mom. I hope I said that right. Suburb of Altoona. Altoona has suburbs. Yes, it does. And we were playing, and I think my cousin, I was on it, and my cousin spun it around pretty hard, and my feet were not touching the ground, but my arms were touching the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Gravity was working, and then I think I went flying. I don't remember, not because I got a concussion, but just because it was pretty little when it happened. I didn't have the upper body strength to keep myself on the ground.
I just again with the grandkids, right? I'm looking around at parks and whatever else, and those things don't exist anymore. And I'm like, it was one of those old people. How did we survive? I can vividly remember things like you just talked about, jumping, rolling 6 or 8 feet because you had to. And to me, that's the life skill. Learning that, hey, dumbass, get running. Hey, dumbass, get your head back so you don't get hit. There's lessons that way, as opposed to let's not give them the toys and let them figure that out. So yes, definitely old guy.
Yeah, but there's some lawyer that's made a lot of money off of that, and that's why they don't exist anymore.
I understand that. Yes.
Yeah. Anything else on this week's podcast? Oh wait, we have made it 37 minutes into the second half of this podcast, so we're probably at an hour plus. But there's Pink and Black stuff this week. It's available.
I saw that. I shared it.
You can buy it. It's only available this week, probably till Sunday when I take it down after the game. So yeah, that's all you need to know there.
Get the stuff.
See? Okay. Housekeeping. I don't know if I'm going to write tonight. I might write tonight. We'll see. It depends on how fired up I am. That was a good episode. Thank you, Tyoka, for joining us. Website. Let's see. Today is Monday. Tuesday, you'll have the podcast. Tuesday night-ish, you'll have depth charts. Thursday, you will have a game preview, probably something from Steve as well. We are going to do a newsletter this week as well.
Yep.
Thank you to gotten a lot of subscribers from that recently, so I appreciate that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The website is called StuffSummerSays.com. On that website, there's a section called With Steve. We have emails. Mine's Darian at StuffSummerSays.com. Steve's is
Steve at StuffSummerSays.com.
Perfect. Will I see you this weekend, Steve? TBD, right?
I think you got a 50-50 shot.
Okay. That's a pretty high chance. It's just
we're a long way from each other.
We are. If somebody wants to donate to us so that we can up our donation level, so that we can have a combined tailgate, probably about 3 spots, preferably on the pavement. That would be great. we're just looking for a sugar daddy at this point. No, we're not really. Other than that, we have Twitter handles. Mine's at Stuff Summer Says. Steve's is
At Steve Sampsel.
all right. See ya. Bye.